Right. Hi, everyone. We're doing the European Fashion School panel today. My name is Aditi, and I'll be your moderator. I think we're just going to wait a couple of seconds to see if any more students are going to pop in. So, yeah. All right, I think we can get started. So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining our European Fashion Schools panel today. My name is Aditi, and I'm very excited to be your moderator for this event. For those of you tuning into a Millie event for the first time, Millie is a company dedicated to building a community for international school students globally. And to that end, we host webinars and panels like this almost every weekend. You can find an archive for all of our past events, as well as schedule for future events on our website, www.milliegroup.com. And if you want to keep up to date with what we have to offer, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Millie_group. And we provide like some quick university tips and some more career guidance as well. And be sure as well today to check out our webinar on research positions for high school students. That's coming a little bit later as well. So here's a little bit about how the panel today is going to look like. We have some pre-prepared questions, but again, students, please feel free to submit your own questions. The first 45 minutes or so, we're going to go through the prepared questions, and then after that, we'll let our panelists answer some of yours, but keep sending them in, and I'll be sure to throw it towards them. And yeah, your questions can be general questions for everyone, or you can direct it to a specific person. Either is fine. So I think we can get started. So firstly, I would love if our panelists could all give an intro about themselves. Can you tell us your name, the city you're currently in / from, and one fun fact about yourself? Could we start with Bella and then go Gloria and then Mitzi?
Sure. Hi, Aditi, and everyone tuning in. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Isabella Visoso. I am originally from Miami, born and raised, but I moved to London for school, and I stayed now to work and go back and get my MBA. And fun fact about myself, I helped dress Shakira for the Super Bowl last year. Was I meant to say something else?
No, that's good. I think everyone was just like in awe of what you just said. Could we follow up? Gloria, could you tell us a little bit about yourself as well?
Hey everyone, it's really good to see you today. I'm Gloria, and I'm currently in London. I'm originally from Hong Kong, and fun fact about myself is that I'm actually a trained Reiki practitioner and also like crystal singing bowl practitioner. So I'm very like wellness aware, and then I'm currently also doing research on that at the Royal College. So yeah, I went to Central St. Martin's for my bachelor's, also for woven textile specialized. So yeah, that's a little thing about me.
Hello everyone, I'm Mitzi. I'm from Mexico. I'm currently living in Monterrey, Mexico. Fun fact about me, I can say that I love photography and makeup, and every time I have the opportunity, I'm the photographer, stylist, designer, makeup artist of all my projects. So I can say I'm a multifaceted designer. Thank you.
All right, cool. Could we also just, I know Gloria touched on this a little bit, but yeah, could you guys all tell me what universities you went to or are still attending, and what did you study? Again, can we start with Bella?
Sure. So I went to London College of Fashion. I initially went in for a foundation degree that was called International Preparation for Fashion, that kind of like helped you discover different areas of the industry before you got into your BA. I'm sure we'll discuss the process of like how European schools work a little bit later. So there I learned, or we studied, fashion media, fashion business, and fashion design. I then went on to do my bachelor's degree in buying and merchandising, left to work for a bit, and then now I'm back at LCF doing my MBA.
That's so amazing to hear about that, Isabella. Actually, I did my foundation course at the LCF as well, and which is London College of Fashion, like in short form, for anyone who didn't know. And then I might actually begins with like, so yeah, and then I discovered my interest, and then sort of like went into doing textile design at Central St. Martin's, like, and then yeah, I'm gonna really talk about the whole process, and for example, like preparing your portfolio and my own experience at Central St. Martin's later on. And then yeah, but I've been pretty much like focusing on woven textiles, which is something that I really specialize in, and I think it's really worth to preserve this sort of like beautiful craft. Yeah.
Okay, so I studied fashion design in Mexico, and then I got a master's at Nava, Milano, in fashion and textile design.
Great, perfect. And so how would you each describe your current job, and what does your day-to-day look like?
Well, now I'm back in school. So I could tell you what my time while I was working looked like. Or do you want me to talk about kind of what the course, my day-to-day looks like? So I started my own business in 2019 after graduating, while working for a designer. And that day-to-day as a studio assistant essentially looked like really early mornings, really late nights. You had to help out with whatever was going on in the studio, from sending out lab dips for the next collection to helping at a fitting, shipping a lot of samples back and forth, creating digital content for social media, for partners. I mean, the list is essentially endless, but now juggling school with kind of my own side of the business, full time, very structured. You have to stay really organized because there's a lot of work. The days are quite long. Wake up, have a coffee, always really necessary. Maybe work out and then start my day. So I'll organize my week ahead on like a Sunday night, block out some time for lectures, then do the work and assignments that are, we'll get into how, like, again, the schools are structured over here, but we have one assignment per term. That's like our final. So plan that out over a course of weeks. And then for my own business side, I'll message clients directly, set up Zoom calls for them, either do consultations. And because of COVID, things have changed a bit. I would go to the fabric shops and look at fabrics with my suppliers there for the projects that I was working on with my clients. But now there's a lot of digital sourcing involved. So it's really dynamic on a day-to-day. It's never really the same. So yeah, it was a bit all over the place, but that's pretty much what a day in my life looks like.
Yeah, we completely agree in terms of that, because I'm currently also juggling a small business startup, which is going to launch in July the 2nd in Paris, which is very exciting, and partnering up with a team of people. And then there's actually always like coordinating between London, Paris, and Hong Kong. So I always have to like stay up at night while doing my master degree, and then like having a Zoom call to coordinating between projects, because we're partnering up with this sunglasses company that is like a small brand in Hong Kong, which is where I'm from. So I'm most excited about that. So because I support local businesses. But like, yeah, during my BA years, it's a little bit more academic focus about like finding out who I am and really just not really juggling that much. But ever since I graduated, that I decided I'm gonna take a step up, and then networking and getting to know different people from different disciplines. And then, yeah, so my day is pretty much about coordinating between my academics and also like my work, and then doing Zoom calls, like really following up the meetings every day, and then like really preparing and updating like what is happening on the other side, because we have to like juggle between the campaign. Everything is very like tight schedule, so everything must have to be done on time, and then also like have to clear communication as well. So for example, like organizing when is the product's going to arrive in France, and then while I'm actually in London and coordinating with some sort of like the coordinator in between. So like Isabella mentioned, like it must have to be like some sort of like really scheduled timing, because otherwise you won't be able to fit everything in. It's sort of like all over the place otherwise. So yeah, really, I totally agree on that. Yeah.
Okay, I'm currently working as a stylist, and my day-to-day depends on the work I have. At the moment, I'm working on the costume design of a movie, and we are going to film by the end of August. For example, last month, I was doing the image consulting of a politician here in Mexico. I work with magazines, bloggers, and everyone who requires a designer, stylist, or image consultant. And also I'm working as well on my brand that I would like to have my collection by the end of this year. And so yeah, this pretty much my life right now as a stylist.
Well, that's amazing. Everyone's doing such different things, but I think overall everyone is very busy and juggling many things at the same time, which is great. So yeah, let's, I think, like move now more into each of your fashion schools, and like a little bit, could you each describe the process of applying to these schools? Like, how did you prepare your application? I know some of you did foundation years, so could you talk about that as well? And yeah, what support did you have at school, and etc.
So I went from a very highly rigorous academic environment that was pushing students to mostly go to liberal arts schools and study at liberal arts colleges. So I grew up essentially with AP IB programming, and the college application process was quite difficult because when you want to go to a fashion school or an art school, that's a very creative discipline, the process is completely different. So you still have to write like a personal statement, and I'm pretty sure that's quite standard across all things. But when it came to preparing a portfolio, I did have in my IB art class, my teacher was a huge support, and she gave me the opportunity to really explore not only within the discipline of fine art, how I can find my niche and like bring that forward in my portfolio. But I did seek external support. So I would take fine art classes after school. I really, from a young age, knew that fashion was something that I wanted to get into. So when I was around 12 years old, I set out my roadmap of like, all right, this is how I'm getting into fashion school, which is a bit intense. And I'm not saying everyone has to have an idea. I mean, a lot of people go their entire lives not knowing what they want to do. Even though I knew I wanted to be in fashion since I was young, I only decided to go into bridal and evening wear 3-4 years ago. So things constantly are changing. And like what the other panelists said, you have to wear a lot of hats at the end of the day. So it's never really the job that you sign up for, so to speak. But back to schooling, the application process, very different. I applied to schools in the UK and schools in the US. So the US application process was pretty standard compared to like what other US schools look like. So again, another personal statement, portfolio, which was digitally uploaded. So you have to photograph your selection of pieces. And for some schools, they require like a special mini project to also be a part of your application. Instead of writing like 6 essays for Harvard, for example, you had to do like a mini project for Parsons. So that for the US was pretty straightforward. There weren't really any interviews. It was more so uploading, revising your written piece, and building your portfolio and making sure that it was the strongest representation of your work. And then when it came to the UK schools, I knew that I was applying to University of the Arts London, which is the branched university where Gloria went to CSM, I went to LCF, and they have another 4 colleges as well. The application process was in person. So be prepared if any of you guys are thinking of applying to LCF. Well, I mean, now with COVID, I don't even know what the process is, but hopefully this should shed a bit of light. I had to bring my portfolio in hand. There were 2 representatives that would fly across the world to, I guess, like 5 cities. And students from across the world would end up in those 5 cities for the interviews for the university. They take your portfolio, they kick you out of the room for 10, 15 minutes. They consult, they read your personal statement, they bring you back in, and they tell you, right, you got the spot, or we actually think that maybe this degree or this program is better for you. And then you have a chat about your interests, where you see yourself, have a chat about your work, your experience. So it's a lot more of an interactive and engaging process, which was a little bit daunting because I wasn't prepared for that. I was very much used to all of the other style of applications where it was upload and go and get a result, and either you're in or you're not. No, this might be a better option. Like, what do you think about this and whatnot? So it was definitely an interesting experience. I was very lucky that through mutual friends, I met a girl that had applied to CSM and kind of prepared me a little bit of what it would be like. But it's like with everything, you could prepare as much as you want. You don't really know what's going to end up happening. But yeah, I would say that was pretty much the main difference between applying to schools in the US and in the UK. Maybe Gloria and Mitzi have different experiences with different regions that they applied in. So you guys could speak to that a bit more.
Well, from my experience, I will I will agree with Isabella about like how sometimes I'm not really prepared for the application, especially because I graduated my 12th grade from a Canadian school, and which is like very much based on AP system and all these just like, the Canadian academic system. So I wouldn't have a chance to maybe like investigate into, textile, like woven textile, or like fashion, and how to even like build a collection. I've completely no idea what to do. So basically what I did was that I spent my own time. I went to a short courses in the UK. And then, I mean, I'm not saying that everyone have to go directly to the UK. It's just because I have some family members that is in the UK, so I'll be able to sort of like during my visit to them that I'm also doing a short course as well, like during my summertime. But you sort of really have to like spend some time outside of your high school or whatever institute you're currently in to sort of like prepare for that, because like I said, in secondary education, there's like less sort of like focus on like fashion or like, preparing for an art school, which can make you a bit lost. And then I remember I first got rejected by Central St. Martin's actually. So I've been offered an alternative place at an IPF, so International Preparation for Fashion at the LCF. And then I went in there, and then we do like a couple of different subjects, and we find out who we are. And I decided it's actually fashion is not for me. Actually, I'm into textile. So then I applied this to Central St. Martin's again, which I would never forget my application process. Actually, a fun fact. So I went into the room. It's really scary. Like, okay, I'm not trying to scare anyone off to going in for an interview, but as in I dropped off my portfolio, they kicked me out. I waited there for 3 hours. It was, I don't know, I would never forget about it. And then I waited for 3 hours, and then we're being called to the area again. And then we all lined up, and then they called it a group of people, maybe like 10 into the room for, I don't know, 20 minutes. They come out, nothing happened. And then I'm like, okay, so am I getting it? And then I went to, so at the end, there's only 3 persons left. I remember it's also my another really good friend that she also got into the course as well. So then they tell, oh, you got in. So it's like, there's this like process of like, first they're gonna look at your portfolio online, and then they're gonna invite you to an interview. And it's also like really, sometimes you feel like you are forcing to do a huge portfolio for your work, but actually quality and your narrative and your concept is so much more important than putting whatever in there that might not be completely relevant as in your personality and your who are you going for, like thinking about who you're designing for. So I mean, I'm not talking about on a secondary level you have to do that, but it's always better to have quality things compared to a bunch of things that doesn't really make any sense. So thinking about the narrative, thinking about why you're putting in something in your portfolio that represents you is really important. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm also agree with Isabella in the application process. In my case, was a little bit different, the same. So I apply here in Mexico. First, I apply for marketing, and I didn't get the score. So I said like I want to study fashion. So I applied for a fashion school, and yeah, so you did like I did a mini project. I have to design the uniform for a company, and then you have like this jury and these professors like telling you, okay, you are like, it's good. Sorry. These professors tell you like, okay, it's you can go for fashion, or maybe you can go like for fashion marketing, etc. But and then in the case for the master, I sent my portfolio via online because I was in Mexico, and I made the master in Milan. And so I wait like maybe 1 or 2 days for the result. But yeah, you need to have your collection and what you did in undergraduate, why you want to study fashion. If you really are committed to study, like for example, textile, or why you choose this major and not another one. So yeah, it's pretty much as you guys say.
Okay, perfect. Thanks everyone for giving like detailed answers on the school application process. Very different, but also similar. And I think one thing for students to really note is this idea of the interview, and you have to go in and you have to be present, because university applications for me, for example, were very much upload. You don't really see them. Interviews as an international student, rare to get. But like, yeah, I think all like 3 panelists have talked about that fact that can be kind of nerve-wracking. So maybe it's good to prep for those interviews in some way if you can find an ability to do that. Okay, perfect. So could we talk a little bit, like each of you talk a little bit about, the formats of your classes and your lectures? This can be either undergraduate or graduate, like what's kind of the things that students should expect when they're going to study fashion, or art or at any of these kind of top universities for fashion?
Sure. So I think at the foundation level, I want to preface this by saying that if you end up applying to UIL or another university that works like UIL that offers you an alternate place, it doesn't mean that you have no idea what you're doing. It doesn't mean that you're bad. It means that the university is really trying to place you where they think you'll be successful. And I know that that was an experience for me that it was really kind of like, oh my gosh, did I do something wrong? Like, is this my career path? Like, I wanted this ever since I was a little girl. And at the end of the day, it ended up working out. And foundation courses, especially for international students that come from completely different teaching backgrounds in the UK, is a massive benefit once you start applying to your undergraduate and postgraduate. Because the way of thinking, the way of writing, the way of presenting is very much solidified, introduced, and explored at that foundation level. And it's at a point where you can learn to be okay with making mistakes. For me, I'm a very type A person that, again, came from an IB school. So the idea of being successful and being the best and having everything structured in a box was very much what I was used to academically. I always thought that design was something that was like extracurricular and like pulled, extracurricular, it's my life, it's my job, but I am very lucky that my job is very fun for me. So it's, it was an extra kind of part of my life that I managed in its own way, and it was its own animal, so to speak. And learning how to be assessing that and like putting that in an academic environment was kind of daunting. So I highly recommend, if you get offered a place in a foundation course, to take it. They're very intense. We would go in all 5 days of the week from 9 o'clock in the morning, sometimes to 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the evening. And it was very much, I would say, close to what a high school experience would be. You would have like 2 hours of class, then lunch, and then you'd have another 2 hours of class, and then a break, and then maybe an hour. The way that the schedule is set up really across all disciplines at UAL at all levels, you have either 2 blocks or 3 blocks, so like semesters essentially. And within those semesters, you have anywhere between 1 and 3 units, so classes. And within those classes, you're essentially at the undergraduate and postgraduate level specifically, you get like a day dedicated to them. So you'll go in pre-COVID for a lecture, which is anywhere from an hour to 2.5 hours. They'll invite guest speakers, panelists, you'll cover material, be as engaging as possible, ask questions, etc. You would get a lunch break, and then there would be a seminar following that. So it would be about 4 hours of the day. And then at the end, you would go home, do your homework, go to work, do whatever you wanted. But it was quite structured in that sense. And I really liked how each unit, so each class, had its own day. So you turned on one thing for one class. And then what they encourage quite a lot is cross-discipline and cross-unit learning. So like nothing siloed. And that's really when you start to see the benefits of going to a creative university over someone who wants to study liberal arts, because a lot of what because the discipline that you're applying to is so specific to what you want to do at the end of the day and what you want to have as a career path. It tries to incorporate so many aspects of what you end up doing that linking them is actually quite useful. So it was a lot of work. You end up getting, instead of tests and quizzes, you get one assignment for the class at the end of the term, and you're essentially working towards that, and all of your lectures and seminars inform that. And it could be anywhere from writing an essay to developing a collection to making a 3-minute video pitch with visual references, a mood board, and writing something. So it's quite all over the place. Not all over the place. They know what they're doing, but the variety is quite wide, which I really enjoyed. I'm sure Gloria can speak to that as well with her foundation experience, and Mitzi, I'm sure it would be interesting to hear what you guys have to say.
Yeah, so because I have done my foundation, bachelor, and also postgraduate education, so I would say compared to like during my foundation, it's definitely more structure compared to my bachelor and postgraduate, because during your foundation you really have to go in there and like really structure, everything is guided, like, but when I'm really doing my bachelor, it's kind of like we have a project brief and we started our research and everyone head off to a different direction. And then I don't first of all, disclaimer, I don't promote like unhealthy lifestyle habits, but it's a truth that students do stay in the Central St. Martin's Library. It's a really hot spot that everyone stay there, work many long hours. But for me, it's a little bit different because I'm a weaver. So I spend my time in the weaving studio, just prepping the warp, like dyeing my warp, dressing the loom. Sometimes it can go up to 1,000 threads. So it's a little bit, so I end up spending quite a lot of time at university during my bachelor. And then the university opened up to 10 p.m. and then I would go in at 10 a.m. and ended up going home 10 p.m. So like I said, I don't promote unhealthy lifestyle, but a lot of time because pre-COVID, so now during my postgraduate education is more different because I'm doing it during COVID, and then it's more home-based. So I get so much more time compared to my bachelor degree where I have to really set out the time to do my sketchbook work, to do my color palette, because everything is hand painted. And then when something that you do it by hand and you winding the warp it's really that experience where you can't really get it from the digital experience. So I would likely to say that with fashion student is even more intense through the whole process of coming up with a concept. And then I know some of my friends that does menswear and stuff like that, they usually during the first year and second year, they also like just create one piece of garments per project because they wouldn't have the time usually to actually create a collection of garments. So it's likewise for my experience that we created a collection of like maybe 8-inch sample for my woven textiles. So it's a little bit different compared to your graduate show. So you will have a lot of time to explore different topics, and please don't be afraid to make mistakes. And then because I think you should really take your time to explore that. Like, don't feel like if you're slower than your other peers, you're like not successful in any way. It's like, I think sometimes things are not very linear, and then you're going to discover yourself throughout your time during your BA, and also like how to actually work out your time as well, because you're so loaded with everything. Also, one thing I have to mention is that in my degree, we're required to do a cultural historical studies, which is like we have it every Monday, but it could be different for different courses. But that will lead to your dissertation and how you can structure that, because during your final year it's really hectic. And I will definitely recommend to sort of have some ideas like what really topic and investigation you want to go into. For example, me working with people that I did a lot of interviews and investigating into cultural objects and why objects matters. So I'm really been working on a lot of that about those sort of concepts. And then initially I hated it because I'm not really a person that loves writing. I'm dyslexic and it's really hard. But I ended up like learning a lot of different thoughts from different disciplines. So sometimes we can inspire by writing as well. So yeah, so what I would say is sort of like stay organized again. So like it's kind of similar, like after I graduate, during my time in school, it's all about like organizing things, because you're always going to hit by different things, like different schedule. Like I think in terms of creativity, like it's sort of like, because sometimes you have a creative block, it's just going to be blocked there. You cannot control it. So it's always good to be prepared. Yeah.
Okay, well, the format of classes on my master was like depends on this on the subject. We had lectures in fashion labs or textile labs, depends on the subject. We had 2 exams per year. So you present your project, either a textile collection, a draping outfit, or a collection of 3 to 6 outfits. Then in the last semester, you had only one class that was fashion design, and then you have to organize yourself with the internship, your collection, the fittings and everything. So yeah, pretty much you have to organize yourself, because if not, um, because you have the submitting of the fittings, the internship, etc. So yeah. And for example, in Mexico, in the bachelor's, you had three exams per semester, and the level of the projects were a little bit less um, like with too much work. In the master, of course, in the master you have like more things to do and so on. So yeah, it's like different in bachelor's to the master.
Yeah, great. That was really, again, really great to hear different experiences. But yeah, I think from what we're gathering is that there was like a mix of like project-based learning, but also like, some more kind of, there was a broad range that everyone has like explored. So yeah, that's great. And Mitzi, I just wanted to ask you as well. You went from your bachelor's in Mexico to doing your master's at NABA, so 2 different like locations during your post-secondary career. So for like the international students, who are kind of struggling with that, how was that switch? Like, why did you kind of how was that experience? Do you mind like telling us a little bit about that?
Okay, well, when I started undergrad, I knew that I must have another career or master. So my university in Mexico has this opportunity to go exchange in exchange programs or do a certification in another country. So I made 3 different summers abroad. So, and then 1 semester. I did 1 semester, 1 semester and 1 summer abroad in Milan. So I really fell in love with the city, with the university and everything. So I start my application in Mexico. When I finished the bachelor, I start the application like immediately to the master. And something that really helped me was to go before to Milan in 2014, and then in 2016 I made the application and everything. So was easy for me, because I went before to the university, to the city and everything. So and also because I had in mind before I start my undergrad, that I have to have the master or another career, like I don't know, maybe marketing or fashion marketing. But then I choose fashion and textile design, because the program fits on what I wanted in my career path at the moment. So yeah, I really like the experience that I have as exchange student. And if you have like everything is this, I say it every time, like if you have the opportunity to go outside your country, you need to take this chance, because the experience that you learn are like amazing for like in your professional life, and also your academic, personal and everything.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you, Mitzi. That was really great to hear. So students, who are wanting to maybe study abroad for masters, go to a different university, try and do something maybe previous, maybe like a study summer abroad, like Mitzi did, or, a study away program before you go to that university, so you can get a good overview of the city life. So that was really great to hear about. So one thing that I wanted to ask as well to all the panelists is, what's your most favorite thing and least favorite thing about working in the fashion/art industry? What's kind of the thing that you look most forward to, and what's kind of one thing that you find is a little bit frustrating?
I think if you want to be in the industry, and it's going to sound a little harsh, you really need to love it. Because you're going to have days where you don't have work. You're going to have days where you're up for 3 days straight, finishing a collection, helping in the studio, setting up your business, everything. And like I said before, you have to wear a lot of hats and you have to be really dedicated because it's very intense. And when you work for, I mean, my experience for working with different brands and at different companies before, I've done a little bit of everything. The demands are quite high. And they don't care how old you are. They don't care if you're also, I mean, they do care that you're going to school and they accommodate as much as they can. But at the end of the day, you're there to learn from their business and their time is very valuable, just like yours is. So you need to give 110% all the time. And it is exhausting and you do burn out. And like Gloria was saying earlier, like it sometimes promotes like an unhealthy lifestyle, but you get your niche, at first it's quite overwhelming. But at the end of the day, you're doing what you love. So it makes it a lot easier. And I think that's the favorite part of my job, that I wake up kind of with to sound like cliche, I wake up with a smile on my face because I know that I'm lucky enough to love what I do and do what I love. And I think the downside of it is just like, you don't really know what to expect, especially someone with their own brand, or even when you're working at a business, like something can come in totally from left field. And something like COVID, even, it doesn't even need to be something work related. Learning how to juggle with those things for me is always like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? And it's not my favorite part of it. But then once you get into it, it all ends up being fine. But it's a lot of hard work that you need a lot of passion for.
Yeah, one thing I want to talk about is that my favorite thing about doing this is like Mitzi have advised that we should always like explore different places while you could, which I totally agree, because I think I would never have met a great team of people that now I'll be collaborating with if I never have chosen to just take a trip alone to some places. So sometimes you have to take some risk, as in like going to, I mean, obviously when it is safe to do so, I'm not advising to do it during COVID while there's restriction in place, which is really hard to do right now. But one thing that I really like is to working with different people from different disciplines, as in I learn a lot from them. Like how I learned from a motion designer will be like inspired by some, just like the imagery, and from imagery you turn it into your concept. And then the downside of it that I don't really like is about sometimes I think doing fashion and textile, it could be a little bit like competitive, like even in school, like especially the school that I went to. I think in textile everyone is quite friendly, but I know that in fashion not all the time. And then I've also been in an internship before, and then like I said, it's always really packed. I walked up, I go in there, and then maybe I'm gonna not even doing the actual designing, but actually just doing as an assistant and watching over the whole process. And then, but I did learn a lot from it. And then I did end up knowing different sources, learning about how to organize everything. And also like sometimes, like I think at this climate is that a lot of brands just taking their archive and recoloring it. And at this point, I just kind of want to say that it's really hard to move forward to balancing in between like commercial side and the creative side, which is always a little bit hard, especially when it comes to budget and overseeing the entire things, the time, the restriction due to COVID. Yeah, so I hopefully maybe in the future, like we're gonna question a little bit more why we do what we do. And then I think it's really important. Yeah, so I hope to see that more in the future. So that is the downside of it. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, my favorite thing is the creative part, the design process, the creating of the concept and everything. I have one experience in one internship that we have to deliver 500 pairs of shoes because we have issues with the manufacturers and some financial issues. So we had to do the pair of shoes like by ourselves from the beginning. And some days you are like, oh my God, this is like too much work. I have to wake up like super early, and your daily day is like from 7 a.m. till 1, 2 a.m. So yeah, one day you say like, okay, I don't want to don't know anything about fashion or textile or whatever, but actually you love the process because you do it with passion. And every time you do something with love and passion, I think it's the better way to do your work. And from this experience, for example, for this internship that we have to do all the pairs of shoes by ourselves, I can say that I know I learned how to do a shoe, like assemble a shoe from the beginning and work under pressure. So yeah, this is my favorite thing of fashion, that you can learn from everything and from everyone. So yeah, and the least that I don't like is the fast fashion industry.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Like we were talking a little bit about this, the fast fashion industry. I feel like that also kind of links to what Gloria was talking about, the commercial side of fashion and like how like that's so fast paced, etc. So yeah, would like some of, the panelists, would you guys want to explain a little bit about what you think about the fast fashion industry and like what do you feel like, how do you think your current career, what you're currently doing, are you able to be like in like the slow fashion industry? Is that something that you think that you're currently doing?
I'm really lucky that I work on a client by client basis within my business. So for me, it's really slow. All of the work that I do is completely made to measure and bespoke. So when it comes to, again, talking about passions, because I feel like I didn't really articulate my favorite part of it. My favorite part is having with each client a completely new project, a completely new experience, and then creating something specifically for them that is through my lens, their personality, something that they love, something that they want, and some sort of a manifestation of who they are through a garment. And that's why I think for me, fashion was so important growing up, because I found it as a way to express myself. So in terms of the fast fashion industry, I mean, if you're super involved in the readings, which is fantastic, another top tip, read about the industry and keep on top of it. Really important. The fast fashion industry is in the past 5 years, I would say it's undergone quite a lot of change. Initially, brands, and I'm not saying that it's not like this anymore, because there are a lot of people that are still like, a lot of companies and brands that still work in this way. It was highly unethical, highly unsustainable, created massive waste to the environment. It still does. Fashion is the number 3 carbon polluting industry in the world, makes the most waste out of any other industry in the world. And when you hear stuff like that, it's like, oh, why do I even want to be in this? But you do need to find ways. That's part of the reason why I'm still in it, because you need to find ways that kind of offset that. And there's so many beautiful stories of brands that find alternative ways of working and alternative ways of creating things to minimize the waste or to try and eradicate it. So, for example, you hear about activewear brands that use like plastic water bottles to create, and I mean, I have two textiles experts here, but that have sorry, I got caught. Plastic water bottles made into like stretch lycra fabrics instead of actually making more plastic and making that. So, I mean, there is movement towards a more sustainable future. But again, all of us are a part of it. So it's the need to be more conscious about not just creating as a designer, but as a consumer. It's a massive part of it. So I highly recommend, if sustainability is something that you guys are into, there's a company called Good On You that is becoming more and more popular. It rates different brands as to how ethical and sustainable they are, and it provides alternatives if they aren't an ethical or sustainable brand. And there's a lot of writing now about fashion, circular economy, and rental and resale and sharing clothing, borrowing, bartering. And it's really exciting to see that on the rise. They're saying that it's actually going to take over fast fashion by 2029. So we'll see if that happens. But yeah, it's something that definitely you see that there's a shift in the industry, that you're trying to be more conscious about creating the brands. But at the end of the day, like I said, consumers are the main drivers of the fast fashion business. So it takes us to be more considered about our decisions to actually make that difference within brands as well.
I agree on the points that Isabella have made, and then I think one of the reason why there's a lot of like different investigation, for example, bioplastics and mycelium and different things, like in terms of materials, like we've been doing a lot of investigation into that, but like they haven't been able to sort of like going into big scale of production is because they require a lot of funding, which a lot of companies not very keen to do at the moment, as if because that sort of areas you have a lot of growth. Like for example, I've been currently working working on this research project at the Royal College of Art, and then I'm looking into like how to create circuits through woven textiles. So it's like haptic technology and these sort of things for the future. But as if like these sort of things is still constantly growing, is like there still need to be a balance between totally technical approach, which I know that there is a lot of people doing it, like, you know, especially in the States or like other places, but especially like, I think there have been a lot of research in the UK and the States and other places, maybe Japan, but then they are mainly like technological focus, as if like they're not very like, you know, appealing to the customers, but as if like a creative, when they create like a piece that is sort of like with the technology or bioplastic, they look a little bit too artsy, like a little bit like, you know, just very focusing on the art side of it. So actually I recently read the paper that discussed about this problem, is that there need to be like a stirring more towards the direction, like balancing in between them, so we can finally maybe be able to sort of like normalize it, as in we can have this new material on a larger scale. So I really think that would be the trend for the future. And what fast fashion really do, I think, is mainly because of the ethical issues, not only on producting, but as in like their design, like is mainly very like, you know, trend based. So and on another ways, like sort of encouraging people to sort of like change every season, but maybe we don't need to change every season. And then as a weaver and as a woven person that weave textile is extremely slow. And then also the group of creatives I'm currently working with producing the sunglasses, we're only limited to producing 200 pieces. So it's sort of like on a very limited scale, but as in, because we didn't want to just go all in and mass produce it. So that is not that kind of business that we want to go into. So I really think, yeah, also customers are more aware of that. Like, for example, I don't know if that is a perfect example, but like, for example, on ARCAD website, you'll be able to see where is it being produced, like what sort of material they use. So the transparency is also really important, which I think a lot of brands is following these days. Yeah.
Okay, so I have the opportunity to work with Fashion Revolution Italy. I don't know if you know about Fashion Revolution, but this is an activation of create conscious about slow fashion, of sustainable fashion, and to tell everyone that that you don't need to buy a pair of t-shirt, jeans, etc. like fast, you know. So yeah, when I was in Milan, I have this opportunity to work with Fashion Revolution, and was amazing and a very great experience because you learn more about what is slow fashion and what is fast fashion. And when you create these little steps, you can make more the consumer more conscious about what to buy and how you buy, you know. So yeah.
That's really great. I think it's really interesting what everyone has talked about, and in terms of like what fast fashion is, and that's like the way forward. And I think each one of you have been like kind of contributing to the slow fashion industry, so that's amazing to hear. If we could just really quickly, if students want to contact you for more information, is it okay? Can we just get like a quick yes and no if they can reach out to you on LinkedIn? Is that good from everyone?
Yeah, totally, absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I think you're on
Sorry,
mute.
I'm muted. Sorry. It was really lovely hearing each one of your experiences. I think we got a great variety of answers for students who are wanting to go all across the world. And yeah, be sure if any students want to answer more questions, be sure to again reach out to us at Millie_group. Thank you so much to each one of the panelists for joining us today. And yeah, thanks guys. Thanks so much. I hope you guys have a great